And I'm glad that you say that we all have it,
Mhm.
because we do. But I can't tell you how many teachers I've talked to, how many folks I've talked to say, "Oh no, I treat all my kids the same. I don't have any bias." And I think that's the problem, right? It's like until we recognize that we have bias, then how can we
Yeah,
address those biases? I mean, I'll do a training on it, and I'll say, listen, I bet you can look in the room right now, look to your left, to your right. There's somebody in here that should be in here that they're not, that there's not here. and
hmm
and and unfortunately, while you're doing this work, and I appreciate what we got going on, but man, it would be really nice to have those folks that really should be in
yeah,
this room, because our students see multiple staff throughout the day. So
yeah,
if you're the only person that's really attuned to that bias, and
yep,
everybody else as a kid sees for that day, especially those black boys that they see for the day, you're going to end up with these same challenges. So it sounds good. What would you suggest to, if we were going to push this a little bit further? How do we get or convince other folks you got bias, or this work needs to happen, or what does bias work, I guess, look like? That's probably the question I'm trying to ask. What does bias work look like?
mm-hmm. So a lot of the work that I do to try and get to that point of the recognition of one's bias is
Mhm.
around the examination of one's culture. And so when people say, I don't see color, I don't, I'm colorblind,
Yeah.
like those are the folks who when we're having a conversation about culture, shallow surface and deep levels of culture, those are the individuals who are like, I don't have culture. Like, yes, you do.
You do.
You absolutely, everybody has culture, but you just need to be asked the right questions so you can kind of reflect on your socialization and how you see the world. And like, so it's really about kind of making the invisible visible. And that's what we have to aim to do, making the invisible visible. Because when we don't know ourselves, whiteness fills in the gaps, right?
Mhm.
Like everything that we think is just kind of like, oh, that's just the way it is. That no, that there's a system, there's a thinking, there's an operation around the normalcy of whiteness in our culture. And it comes under the larger umbrella of America when we're talking about, of course, patriotism and meritocracy and capitalism and all of those things. We need to examine it, and then we need to examine the culture of many other groups so we can see that there are differences that we can all appreciate.
Mm.
But until we can learn to appreciate it, we're always going to be fearful of it. We're always going to be concerned about it. We're always going to want to control it in the spaces that we are supposed to be sharing together.